Hello everybody, welcome back to the Word from the Shed, and we are in the Easter weekend. We're between Good Friday and Easter Day, that day when Jesus lay in the tomb after his dreadful crucifixion and just before his rising again from death. It's the highlight of the Christian year, but of course many people now are dimly aware of the reality of Easter, and we celebrate it more, it seems to me, with Easter bunnies and eggs and the coming of spring. We rather trivialize it, I think, if we're not careful. Oscar Wilde wrote a poem about Easter, and it's got nothing to do with my personal convictions about Catholicism and Protestantism. I'm not reading it for that reason, but it just makes an extremely good point. So I'll read it to you now. The silver trumpets rang across the dome. The people knelt upon the ground in awe, and borne upon the necks of men I saw, like some great god, the Holy Lord of Rome. Priest-like, he wore a robe more white than foam, and king-like, swathed himself in royal red. 3 crowns of gold rose high upon his head. In splendour and in light, the Pope passed home. My heart stole back across the wide wastes of years, to one who wandered by a lonely sea, and sought in vain for any place of rest. Foxes have holes, and every bird its nest. I, only I, must wander wearily, and bruise my feet, and drink wine salt with tears. Brings out the contrast, I think, between the pomp and splendour of enormous Easter services with hundreds of people and wonderful choirs and people dressed in splendour. And I'm not necessarily saying there's anything wrong with that. But you've got the two sides. You've got the splendour on one side and you've got the trivialisation on the other side. And these truths of the simplicity and of the Easter story don't always come through. And there's a rawness and a brutality about the death of Jesus, which is surprising. It's gospel writers don't give us all the details, and I'm thankful that they don't. We use our imagination. It's a terrible passing that Jesus had. And it was full of dishonesty. It was an illegal trial at night. And the charges that were brought against him just didn't add up, and they didn't have anything to do with what he'd actually said, rather than what they thought he'd said. He was betrayed, and he died isolated on the cross, even feeling his Father had abandoned him. My God, why have you forsaken me? Which is really the depth of death. Total separation from God. But in amidst all that degradation and that horror, Jesus is actually in control. We watch him move through the trials and even the arrest, and every area of the story. He seems to be above all the brutality and the lying and the isolation and desolation of it all. In John chapter 10, we have this. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. The New Testament, or rather the Old Testament, moves in a prophetic manner towards this very moment of the life and death of Jesus. there is much prophecy and pointing to his death, even the manner of his death, in the Old Testament, and the hope of new life. And the vast majority of prophecies of the New Testament end up either at the birth of Jesus or at his death and resurrection, including, of course, his life in between those two things. And if you read Psalm 22, for instance, or Isaiah 53, those are two passages which clearly point to this event, written hundreds of years before Jesus died. And when he died, he was taken and put in the tomb. And the great thing about the resurrection, it says that God raised him from the dead. In Acts chapter 2, Peter's preaching the birth of the church, the birth of something brand new the world had never seen before. And he says this, but God raised Jesus from the dead, freeing him from the agony of death, because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. See, God created life. And death is the great enemy. Death came into the world because we as human beings were irresponsible with the creation God had given us, and we started to become very sinful in the way we lived. And that condemns us to being separated. My God, why have you forsaken us? Jesus dies on our part in the cross, making that same cry, why have you forsaken me? But on the third day, God raises him, and a new humanity is born. He's the first fruits of many brethren, first of many brothers. And once he is risen, there's the opportunity for all of us to receive forgiveness, not only for ourselves, but for the state of the world, and to receive also this resurrection life. And that's why the church lives on today, despite all its separation from so-called reality in the world, despite all its persecution, despite all its mockery, despite much dismissal of its truths these days, the church goes on. It'll never die, because the life of Christ is filling the church. And so this Easter, why don't we think carefully about what we're doing, what we're celebrating? There's basically one prophecy yet to be fulfilled, and the New Testament points to it throughout, but especially in the book of Revelation, that one day Jesus will return, and he will gather the elect to himself. The elect are those who have humbled themselves before the cross and said basically, well, God, I'm wrong and you're right. I surrender the rest of my life to you. Those who enjoy the knowledge that they're forgiven sinners because Christ has redeemed them. And there's life beyond the grave for us as well. Knowing those two things means we can live a fruitful life, whatever may come in our direction. So Easter is a big thing. We should hold Easter in our hearts every day of the year. Every Sunday. You know why Sunday is the first day of the week? It's because it's the day that Jesus rose from the dead. It used to be Saturday, now it's Sunday. So may God bless you this Sunday, this Easter day, when you celebrate together the rising of Jesus. God bless you, and bye for now.